Well, there's the old Langham sign on the original finish on the building when we bought it. I always loved that old sign. There's a picture of me. I was part of an article Les Story did in the Nelson Daily News. And here I'm on the roof with Denny Blue and Fred Higley and Pat Boyer talking about flashing. I was 25 years old when I asked a group of people at the cafe if they wanted to start a society. That was Alan Davidson, Fred Higley, Barb Scrivens, and my wife Dare. And Alan suggested his wife and Jim Van Horn would be interested, and Barb and Fred said Pat and Jackie Boyer would be interested, and I suggested Bart Darnell, and we had our 10 people. This is my wife, late wife Dare, and she was a big part of the Village Green and kept the social aspect of it going. And I was called Mean Mike by a lot of people because I was kind of grumpy a lot of the time. And I put a paper bag on my head, like a chef's hat, and wrote Mean Mike on it and created a Mean Mike breakfast. Here's Dare and I with our beautiful daughter Jolie sitting next to one of the walls I created out of old reject shingles, and liked to decorate the place with old weathered wood and reject shingles, and just kind of a thing I liked. And here's a jam I was having once with Roger Lucky and Kim Martin, and there's his wife sitting in the background with Jolie on her knee. And we're just hanging out in the afternoon while we were closed, jamming out, playing some tunes. And Roger taught me all the old-time fiddle tunes I have in my repertoire. And here's Kim Martin sitting with his daughter Rebecca and Jolie on both his knees. He's got quite a handful there, as you can see. And he was a big volunteer early on in the Langham, helped a lot. Here's some booths I made out of some old weathered wood and some big slabs of cedar that were donated by T&H Sawmills to the Village Green. And a lot of people like to hang out in those booths. And here's another wall with some old relics with some barn wood and the shingles. And eventually we got rid of all those old Formica tables and built some funky wooden tables. And everybody liked the atmosphere in the Village Green. Dara, as you can see, she liked to shovel snow a lot out in front of the cafe. Being as how we were from Southern California, she got every opportunity she could. She'd get out there and do some shoveling of snow. You can tell by the look on her face. And this Murray Ford photograph and here's a photo of the Village Green that got put into the National Geographic magazine book they put out called Majestic Rocky Mountains. Here's a picture of the cover here, you can see. And one night we were having music in the Village Green. The photographer was in town, and he showed up, and he really dug the whole scene there and the music, and I got to know him. And here's another picture of the Village Green with a bunch of people hanging out in front. You got Jim Van Horn and Fern and looks like Ruth Ford sitting out there on the ledge. And people used to hang out in front of the Village Green a lot and talk about this and that and things they were going to do. And this here picture was taken in 2023 behind Tom's t-shirt shop, and Ted Soper was in town, and he used to come in the Village Green all the time. And there's Tom, and we made a breakfast called The Terrible Ted. Here's this article that was written by Les Story and published in the Nelson Daily News. And he came to town and interviewed me, and I told him how I wrote Walter Schmidt a letter to see if he would sell the building if I could organize a group of people to form a society And he agreed to, and he came to town, and we made a deal. And we organized a roof raising benefit to raise enough money to buy shingles to do the whole entire roof of the Langham. And this is before we got any grants, and the first half of the roof was all done with volunteer labor. And different days, people would show up, and I closed the cafe for 2 weeks so I could go there and work on the roof and not have to fry hamburgers and eggs for people. And Alan Davidson and I built this wooden scaffolding to get us up there, and we just used a bunch of lumber, and then Tommy O'Baba gave us these cement forms, and we built a construction fence. And Marie Ford got an idea to have people come, and we'd paint their silhouettes on the side of the building, and they'd give us a few coins, and so that was a fun project. Another thing we did was to build a float of the Langham, which we put into the May Days parade, and we built it out at Fred Barb's place out in Shetty Bench, and Richard DeCraner hauled it into town on his big old truck, and we put the float on top of Fred Higley's little Datsun pickup truck and drove down Front Street in the parade. And it was a whole lot of fun. People were totally blown away. It's probably the best float that's ever happened in the May Days parade in Coslow. And there's the old village green you can see in the background there. And Dara and I walked in front of the float at times and played some old fiddle tunes. You can see us. Someone gave us this old photograph a while back, and so we're jamming out in our young, skinny bodies, and I'm playing some fiddle tunes that Roger Lucky taught me. And here's Pat Boyer and little Jolie Guthrie and her good friend Elizabeth Van Horn, and they're hanging out, looking inside some box. It looks like maybe I might find some goodies in there. And here's me and Ruth doing little finishing touches on the float, and painting some windows on the back side of it. And Ruth Hanley gave me most of these black and white photos you see that her husband Murray Ford took. Now here's Jack McDowell, who had the Castle Concert Committee, and I worked with him on the first incarnation of that. I was one of the board members. Next to him was Alan Doby, and Alan was one of the board members of the Langham, and he oversaw the completion of the second and third floors. And here's his wife, Robin Scobie, and they met in the Village Green, and Robin had been coming in for a while, and here's Dara with Jackie Boyer, and they're doing a little paintwork on the back of the float, getting it ready to roll. And a bunch of people contributed on the float. It was just a whole lot of fun. And here's one of the articles that got published about the Langham. It's one that I wrote, Michael Guthrie's Langham Memories, and it got published in the Nelson Star back in 2015. Here's an article that was published in the Kootenai Weekly Express in 1992, and later on there were some other articles published in the Caslow Claim, which was created by the Valley Voice. Here's a picture of Fred Higley. He was a board director who was in charge of all the restoration work of working on the building and getting the ground floor open. And they gutted the whole building, finished the second half of the roof, and finished off the ground floor. And there's Arleta Stevens was the first paid administrator of the Langham. And this is Linda Ackerman. They were both working on the first LIP grant that we got there to do all that work. And here's some pictures of the story that was done in the Castle Claim that Jan from the Valley Voice put out. And it was a special publication by the Caslo Historical Society. You can get a copy of it at the archives. They have a bunch of extras over there, so head on over and get your copy of the Caslo Claim. And it's got all kinds of cool stories about Caslo in it. And here's a picture of the Langham in its kind of somewhat current state. And the difference was quite astounding from what it was and what it became. And here's a picture of me cutting a ribbon at the opening of the ground floor. And it was a big festive weekend, and I was in a group that performed in the theater, a group with Allison Hogan called Tuxedo Junction, along with Robin Metcalf and Darylyn. Here's a picture of me in 2023 holding the scrapbook. Emily Mattis first created this. She was one of the employees on the first LIP grant, and she worked on this scrapbook, sat in the Village Green and put it together, and it's been added to since, I believe. And here's a picture of Alan Davidson at the opening of the second and third floor, having a celebratory glass of wine and a big smile on his face, rightly so. And I believe he was standing at the top of the stairs on the third floor there. And I guess I got a lot of pictures of him. This just keeps going, eh? Look at that. And now here's a shot of me sitting in the second floor. And there's my old panel truck outside parked in front of the Legion. And it was a 1947 Mercury 1-ton panel truck. And here we have some shots of the grand opening of the second and third floor. We got Jack Humphreys giving a speech to a bunch of people out in front of the Langham, and over to the left we got David Seath, I believe, and he was one of the presidents of the Langham. And Langham became very popular, and lots of people chipped in, and it was quite the happening scene right off the bat. And it didn't take a lot really to get people interested, because of what the Langham is and was sorely needed in Castle, and people were just thrilled to have something they can get into and contribute to. And people used to volunteer a lot back then. And I'm thankful to everyone all along the way for these 50 years the Langham has been going on, and for helping make my dream come true, of where people told me it could never be done, but look, here we are.